Welcome back to the Blindsiders. I am Ben. We're with Dylan and Brian to talk about the finale of Survivor 46. It is wrapped. It is a wrap. We are done. We are our sixth winner crowned of the new era in Kenzie Petty is the winner of the season. And we'll get to that. But yeah, it's a really interesting finale. I think there's a lot to dig into here. I know we've Brian and I welcoming back Dylan. And I think that we have struggled to talk about things because it felt like every episode was just a repeat of people getting blindsided with idols in their pocket and us just throwing our hands up like, what are we supposed to talk about? And but I think there's a lot to dig into here. What do you guys think?
First off, nice to be back. Life has gotten in the way of this podcast, but life could not get in the way of this finale and recording. I think still overall great finale. Very entertaining. The season for me never really lost its step. I do think that I think it felt somewhat anticlimactic leading up to the final vote, but I think the final vote provided so much drama for the show that it ended up working really well in the end. It's the first after show I've stuck around for its entirety for, and I don't even know how long. I'm pleased with the winner. Kenzie was not the winner I would have voted for, but I think Kenzie was still deserving, and so I good for her. I mean, halfway through this season, I was saying I thought Kenzie was being set up to win, and then a few missteps and other plays, great plays by other players. I thought that she kind of had fallen behind, but her social game was really strong, and that's something that we had always highlighted, and that's clearly what won her the game. But overall, great finale. I loved it. Naturally, there's people saying that, it ruined the season. Some people are saying it's the best season ever. I think that this is still the best new era season. I think the characters were great. And I think the drama we got at the end was excellent. So I'm like 2 thumbs up. I'm still there, even though Charlie, who I wanted to win, did not win at that stage. I'm still very happy with Kenzie, and I think everything just played out really well. Those 3 hours kind of like really flew by. I was a little nervous like halfway through. I'm like, I don't know how we're only halfway through this episode. Then I think that latter half, once the first vote out happened for Maria, I think everything else after that kind of flew by really well. So 2 thumbs up. I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Congratulations to Kenzie. Obviously, a very deserving winner. I felt, though I definitely we will get into mostly the Maria vote. I feel like is the big one that's like, taking the internet by storm today in the aftermath of it. But I was very actually surprised that the final tribal council had both Kenzie and Charlie. I thought, one of them would have, gotten rid of the other and won handily over Liz and Ben. Although, I mean, Liz would have something to say about that, I guess, but not that matters. I mean, Kenzie, what can you say? She played like a very solid game from the jump, was part of one of the worst starting tribes ever. A tribe that, lost as many pre-merge challenges as anybody in this new era and got bailed out by somebody getting medevaced. And then to kind of ride through, we talked about her being a contender the whole season. We talked about how she probably got lucky with Tiff getting sniped without her being involved in that. And then this episode certainly seemed to confirm that. I mean, Tiff was her biggest cheerleader, and I don't necessarily think, maybe she would have been a good sport and voted for Kenzie if, she had been taken out by Kenzie, but I don't think she would have been quite as enthusiastic in, championing her on the jury. Something Charlie could have benefited from, and as we alluded to, his number one was not a champion for him whatsoever. And so I think, I want to make sure on the top, because I do think a lot of this episode will be discussing the Maria and Charlie stuff, but I want to make sure it doesn't get lost that Kenzie, very good winner as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think we throughout the season gone back and forth of who we thought between Kenzie and Charlie was getting the winners at it, and I had fallen in at the end thinking that it was Charlie who was ultimately gonna win.
Yeah,
I had it as like a 90 Charlie, 10 Kenzie, basically. Yeah, I'll admit my being wrong on that. But I do think this is probably like one of the like top 5 closest jury votes in the history of the show. Like there were multiple people who changed their mind at Tribal. I think multiple votes could have gone either way. Tevin was like, basically looked like he was flipping a coin in his head as to who to vote for. I think Hugh could have gone either way. And so, yeah, I do think like a butterfly could have farted in the wind and Charlie could have won the season. You know what I mean? Like, it was that close. So I understand the way that the storytelling happened. It was basically like elevating both of their games, and then the big like gong noise at the end of the season as to why Charlie loses is like being hyper focused on Maria didn't vote for him, right? Maria votes for him, he wins the season. She didn't. So like that's kind of like why everybody's hyper focused on that. Obviously, like it's a big stroke. We can talk about the after show, which I don't like, and it's really uncomfortable. It's like Scott's Tots level of uncomfortable for me to watch these people who are had their dreams crushed being like being expected to like celebrate somebody else just like beating them, and like losing a jury vote is way worse than getting voted out, in my opinion. And yeah, you could tell that Charlie was crushed, especially when he found out that Maria was not one of his 3 votes. So yeah, that's kind of my overview. I guess we could start at the final 5 and just kind of like quickly go through it. Because there's, other than the challenge, there's not a lot of meat on this round. So anything before the challenge you guys want to talk about from the final 5?
I don't even think there's really anything notable from pre-challenge. Like, it was kind of like a little bit of like a buffer zone getting into kind of like all the action. So no, I feel like the episode really like kicked off with Liz just starting diverting and helping out Kenzie. I think that's where everything kind of really took off from there, which I think that's actually Liz did a really good job of somebody that had no chance of winning this game kind of taking over maybe like the first half of this episode with her kind of delusional view on her game, while also doing I'd say like controversial move to help out Kenzie to take out Maria, because as 1,000,000 people had brought up online before, there have been instances where Jeff had not allowed this. But I think, as we've discussed 1,000,000 times before, this is not the same Jeff that we had 20 years ago, not even 10 years ago. So I think overall, I'm fine with it. I feel like it's something that was probably clearly established with the players off screen, that if they were to help, maybe that would be okay. You know what I mean? Because there have been instances before where players have been stopped from helping out other people. The Aussie situation was a big one I saw brought up a lot. I'm fine with it. I think it sucks for Maria, and it's almost kind of like maybe a domino effect that set off the rest of what happened in the end with Charlie too. I don't know, but I overall, I'm fine with Liz doing it. I think it's like a cheap move and not something I would do, but I don't think it affected Kenzie's endgame at all, other than the fact that they just got Maria out, which obviously was huge, but I don't think anybody would look back at that and say like Liz handed Kenzie a winner or anything like that. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I don't want to sound too much like Emily flipping, but I want to push back on this. I don't like that Jeff. I'm not going to blame the players, because I think in Survivor, in any of these games, you should push the rules as much as you can get away with. I'm going to put this squarely on Jeff. I think because he had prevented people from helping each other in challenges, individual immunity challenges in the past, he should have remained consistent with this. I don't like, and I want to say, like, I'm not heartbroken over Maria losing. I'm not even that big of a Maria fan. But I don't like that, an individual challenge, a challenge that's not based around any sort of, like the coconut chop challenge where there's a social element to the challenge itself. I don't like that you can be teamed up on in a challenge like this. And I think, it's on Jeff to say what you can and can't do. And I think just based on the precedent he had set in the past, this wasn't something you could do, but he just let it go. And I personally don't like that at all. I don't think like Jeff should, if that was Boston Rob getting teamed up on, no way. Jeff's letting that happen. And, there's no doubt in my mind about that. So like, I think all these players should be treated the same to have like at least like a little bit of fairness. I mean, Survivor's not fair, obviously, but like there's stuff like that where I feel like you as a host, it's on you to like enforce some bit of fairness within the game itself.
Okay, I'll be the enlightened centrist here. Then I'm kind of my opinion kind of falls somewhere between in the middle here. I think that in this specific instance, it didn't matter because Liz could have, Liz, from my understanding, that as long as the planks are identical, which is to my knowledge they were, Liz could have just taken her plank and counted them and given her Kenzie the information. And there's really nothing you can do to stop something like that. Like, I think the only questionable part of it is the fact that Liz went back and grabbed Kenzie's plank instead of her own. But the information is kind of the same. It's kind of, to me, like people teaming up on The Amazing Race to get through tasks faster together, which a lot of people who are fans of Amazing Race don't like and think it cheapens the tasks. And famously a few seasons ago on Amazing Race, there was an alliance of teams that steamrolled at the end by always helping each other on tasks and sharing information that made the season extremely boring. But I don't mind it in this specific instance, with the knowledge that the physical intervention didn't really matter. But I do worry about the precedent going forward that you've now allowed the ability for players to physically intervene, and resetting that line in the sand is going to be tricky because in this instance, Liz is intervening physically with the pieces of Kenzie's puzzle to help her. But in future seasons, what's on paper the difference between somebody doing that and somebody going up and taking a puzzle piece off somebody's board and chucking it across the playing field? Where's the line is kind of where I'm worried.
And I don't have a problem with team challenges, people sabotaging the team, because there is a personal penalty. You can be Drew Christie and throw a challenge and get voted off. Yeah, but
the came to my mind was the swap in China with PG.
Yeah, but that was a calculated risk that they took. Could have not worked out. James or Aaron could have had an idol at that point. They didn't, but it could have happened. But I think for me, it's one of the sticking points is also the challenge is supposed to follow, you do this and then you do this and then you do this and then you do this. The you do this is completing the puzzle to get the information to go back down. Would Jeff let someone skip an obstacle? I don't think so. If someone can't do a balance beam, Jeff's going to make them do the balance beam. I don't think Liz should have been allowed to leave the station without completing her puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. That's just me. That's, like I said, Survivor's not fair. I'm not crying for Maria. I just don't like that it's so very clearly up to Jeff's discretion. I think you have to have things that are like if in the past, which he did, Jeff said, nope, this is an individual challenge. You can't help each other directly by picking up people's pieces. That's fine. And it was my understanding that's how it worked. But apparently it is not. And it will be interesting because, like you said, I mean, I'm I'm the type of person who would push boundaries, and now I know Jeff, is potentially able to be pushed in, these circumstances. So he'll have to step up, and then we might be being like, well, why'd Jeff say you couldn't do this when he let Liz get the plague? Like, it just sets a bad precedent.
I think it's also, it kind of like, it almost like it like highlights kind of too of what was going on in the game at this point, of how strong of a social game Kenzie was playing compared to Maria.
Mhm.
That somebody was so hell-bent, and I know Maria was the clear front runner at this point, so if anything, it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend at this point. Where Kenzie, I think two reasons. One, I think Liz, and I would have too, I think the whole rock paper scissors shoe thing, which I wasn't here to discuss, with Liz and Q and Maria, I think that definitely stuck with Liz. I saw a lot of people online. There were, because that was that big night, and I know I'm kind of like rehashing things I wasn't here for that you guys talked about, but
It's important.
That night was huge on social media too. I think Maria like deleted her Twitter after that night because of that. I think that she got shelled. Same thing. I'm not shedding any tear for Maria. I actually come out of this season viewing Maria as like a villain role. I think Maria was the villain of the season outside of Q, based on how everything ended, which is great. We needed more of it. I think we need somebody to root against, and there were so many people on this season that were so easy to root for, that Maria in the end was a great villain. I hope to see her again, even though I hated how everything played out. I think it just shows how strong and how important the social game was for everybody here, that Liz at this point, who was basically just like in the game. I put Liz behind Ben at that point of somebody who had a chance to win. Liz was just in the game, and I think doing that was her final like swan song of getting back maybe at Maria for not choosing her, the frustrations from all that, while also showing that Kenzie really was liked a lot by a lot of people. And Liz was like, because Liz didn't go out of her way to help Charlie. She didn't go out of her way to help Ben. She went out of her way to help Kenzie. And yeah. I think that is
was
a
that
testament.
just because Kenzie was
Kenzie was the lead.
Yeah. But and in the end, I mean, look at that. In the end, Liz did not even end up voting for Kenzie, somebody who she helped a lot. Because I don't think Maria necessarily, I don't think that challenge was if Maria wins that, she wins the game, because we still have another challenge and we still have fire and all that. I think Maria's chances are probably very, very good after that point. But I don't think that, like I said earlier, I don't think that was Liz handing Kenzie the game at that point, because that's just not true. But obviously a huge thing in getting Maria out. And like we said, I think it just set off a domino effect for the rest of the game. I don't know. And I'm really looking forward to getting into discussing things that players should and should not have done, because I don't think Charlie was like robbed overall of a win. I think there's a lot of things Charlie could have done differently at the end. But one thing I do want to say, though, the three players that were left were probably the three players that had the strongest social connections on the entire season. I think that this season, particularly, if you talk about how the game has moved into way more of a social game than it was of a, there's always strategy there, but of a physical to social type game, I think that proves that's where they're at, because the three most likable people on that island, and probably viewership wise, although my brother despises Ben, he talks about it all the time. I think they were the three people that played the best social game. And it was just, it's very clear that mattered a lot in the end.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, we can get. I have a lot to say about the final tribal and like how that played out, so we'll for sure get there. Yeah, I agree. I think it's very interesting. I wonder, do you guys think that Maria was as big of a threat as everyone thought that she was? Do you think that she like runs away with a jury vote if she gets to the end?
Maybe not runs away with it if she's against Kenzie, but I do think people viewed her as the alpha of the Charlie and Maria duo, and then the drove the game. I mean, it's really hard because like driving the game is something I value very much when I'm like watching it and like making my decisions on who I think should win. I have found that not everybody agrees with that. Despite my protest, I was like, but if you're not driving the game, then you're just letting the game happen around you. But I think she does win. I think there's also like something to be said about just like people deciding somebody's in the best, position to win, and then that just becomes like the truth, and that if they get to the end, they win.
Yeah, look at Liz.
Yeah, look at Liz. Yeah. But it's like, oh, don't let this person get to the end. And then everyone's just like, yeah, don't let them get to the end. And then if they get to the end, it's like, well, shouldn't have let them get to the end. We were saying that.
Yeah.
I think it's another really close vote. I think she could beat Kenzie, but I also see a scenario where Kenzie beats her too. I think there with Charlie, I think she takes all the votes from Charlie at that point. And I think jury management was a really important thing with all this, clearly, where I do think that a lot of those jurors, I think take Tiff out. I think take Tiff out. I think she was the only one that maybe had her mind completely set going into it. I generally think a lot of those jurors were between Charlie and Kenzie going into that. I think a lot of them had an open mind. So I think if you reverse that with Maria, I think Maria gets Q's vote probably. I think Venus probably goes to Kenzie. I'm not going to go over each vote, but yeah, I think that. I don't know. I think that's why this season was so great. I think there was a lot of different scenarios that could have played out at the end where we get a different winner. But I think overall it was always going to end up being Maria, Kenzie, or Charlie. I don't think that Ben or Liz. There was no scenario where Ben or Liz win. But yeah, I don't know. That's why I don't think Maria was an automatic lock to win that. I think she had the best chance, but I think so many different things could have played out at the end there. The way we have 3 different alternate universes where we have 3 different winners. So I don't know, but I think she definitely had a really, really good shot to beat Kenzie and Charlie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of like the reason that started like running in my head was the comments that Hunter made about like Charlie kind of like seeming to like misstep in the last 2 rounds or something like that. He said. And that made me like wonder whether I don't know if that implied that Hunter thought that Charlie voted the wrong people out at 5 and 4, or that he just like didn't win those immunities, and that's what Hunter values.
It very well could be the latter too. I think with Hunter.
Yeah. I don't really understand that. Maybe we can get into it more later, but it's like. I mean, was Maria the biggest threat or not? And if she was, how is voting her off bad? I don't understand that. But I don't know. Sure wanted something flashier, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Should voted Ben off, I guess.
We have anything else on the 5?
No, I mean, I liked Maria's graciousness in her exit, only to undercut herself at Final Tribal Council. Kind of made it like funny in retrospect.
I think it's funny.
Good. And then
I think it's all. I have no idea how Maria is in real life, so I'm not going to judge based off of that. But I think everything we've saw between cut clips, sorry, the way that she. I don't think she was ever really like nasty to anyone, but I don't know if she was necessarily ever the most like gracious. I think that she just bit her tongue a lot when things didn't go her way, which that's just being mature at that point. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how like great of a person Maria was in the game, and I think for Venus especially. If we talk about all the social media discourse that happened during and after the game, which that's another thing that really played into this season too, was everything that was going on Twitter, and mainly on Twitter, but on Reddit too, with I hate how much Jelinski kept getting involved. Jelinski was always there somehow, but pretty much like Q, Venus, like there was a lot of things going on Twitter that in hindsight make a lot of sense. And Venus pretty much said that like Maria was, for lack of a better, Maria was a stone cold bitch to her the entire time. I think we saw a glimpse of that too when Maria was crying that Venus was like slandering her character in that tribal. Like I hated all that. I always go back to the clip of Tim too and how she treated Tim after the fact, and I just like I don't know. I think that she was
Ben after the Tim vote.
Yes, Ben after the Tim vote. Sorry, I think that she genuinely just treated people like shit, and I think we saw when she saw an opportunity to start using Q to her advantage over Charlie. I think it just showed that the players were just numbers to her at that point. I don't know if her and Charlie were ever really that close in her eyes. I think that's what makes everything so tough. And we'll talk about it, why that the post show was so hard to watch too. I think that she was there to be as cutthroat as possible, and it is what it is. Like that's how you play Survivor. I have no. She could be the best person ever in real life. I think like attacking her personal character when we have no idea what she's like outside of the game is stupid. But she is a villain through and through. Like she's maybe the villain that we've been asking for the past couple seasons too. Because look at I can't ever remember a season where so many people are talking about what has happened outside of the winner, like they are for this season, which is great. So Survivor needed it, but I don't know. Maybe she just sucked and was not the nicest person on the island.
Yeah. I think the moment for me was at the top of the episode when they come back from the Q blind side. And she's like, I guess everyone's playing now, like whatever she said. I think that's kind of like a good distillation of how she views other people.
Right. Yeah. Where she's like, well, everyone's playing my game. They're not playing their own game. Yeah, I think you're right there, Ben. I think, I wish she, because, you're saying, Dylan, that like, she's a villain we want. I will disagree a little just because I think I would prefer a villain who's like more like open and like accepting that they're like being a villain. I don't think she like necessarily, I don't know. It's hard to describe because it's like she went at Charlie the exact same round Charlie betrayed her. And like, as far as I'm concerned, that's a wash, like, oh, you got me. But it felt like she took it weirdly personal, given like that she did the same exact thing. I think last week we talked about it, Ben, where I was like, oh, this is kind of like perfect that Maria went after Charlie because now Maria can't be bitter about this, but she seemingly was a little bitter, which like, that doesn't appeal to me personally. I guess, you can be bitter if you want, but it doesn't, mean that I'm going to have to like it, right?
She probably, I think she really took Charlie not taking her to the family letters to heart. I think it was clear she was very upset, and I get it. If I was away from my kids for that long too, like I'd be upset. But I think there was clearly one side to that relationship that was committed to the things that they were saying, where like they don't take each other to the rewards. They're going to vote for each other at the end, no matter what. Like we kept hearing the Malcolm and Denise comparison. Malcolm voted for Denise at the end, even though he had the right to be like upset. It was literally the same exact scenario where Malcolm in the end chose Denise, and we'll get into it. Very different final travel setup in the way that you're able to do things. And I think that a lot of that matters with how things have played out recently. But I think Maria was very, very bitter. I think it was surprising too, because I thought a lot of the other jurors were going to be bitter to the players that were left in there. But in the end, it really seems like it was just Maria bitter to Charlie.
Yeah. I think I'll echo a little bit of what Brian said. That I agree. I think I enjoy villains who are either self-aware that they're villains or like so unself-aware that it becomes campy. And like Maria's kind of like not on either side of that. So it's like kind of, it's hard to like really get a read on what I'm supposed to feel about her. Like I'd say Q is like a villain who's like so not self-aware that it's campy. And you know, we've had other villains in the past that have been very self-aware and lean into it hard. I agree. I don't care if people are bitter. I would prefer if people are like just honest that they're bitter and not treat me like I, as an audience member, I'm stupid, because that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like my intelligence as a viewer is being insulted by Maria when she's like not just being like, yeah, I was bitter that Charlie beat me. Like if she said that, I'd be like, okay, that's your emotions. You can feel that. Like, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there are two other players that come to mind. And I don't know if I even want to name drop them just because there's so much drama surrounding that, who are very clearly bitter and who they voted for in the new era Final Tribal Council. And just to this day have not just been like, yes, I was bitter and I didn't want to vote for that person, so I didn't vote for them.
See, the comparison that I immediately thought of after this happened was Burton and Lil in Pearl Islands, where Burton famously tries to vote out Lil, fails, Lil votes out Burton, and then Burton is annoyed and is like, how dare you, Lil, you betrayed me, even though he betrayed her first.
Yeah. And like, it's just like, it sucks because I don't give a shit why someone votes for someone to win. You could literally be like, I just prefer that person, you know, and that's fine. But yeah, like Ben said, just be honest about that. Don't try to be like, well, actually, is more of a strategic thing when it's like it just very clearly isn't, though. You know,
Brian, you're talking about the Gaylor season. That
I'm talking about Carla and Jesse.
Yeah.
To this day, getting very passive aggressive, which makes me feel like it's true that, and they know it, but they don't want to admit it because they don't want to be viewed as people who voted bitterly. But I don't see what the problem about that, because I think it's way worse to be viewed as people who are dishonest about it.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah, but you know, I don't know. I get annoyed when this discourse comes up because it comes up a lot on Twitter with some of the people involved in that, and then I'm sure, well, maybe Maria won't be so much as this, but it's just like, you can be bitter. That's totally fine and valid, and it's your game, and whoever gets the most votes at the end deserves to win. But like, just own it. Just own it.
I do think that, you know, I understand though the backlash and the reason that people lie, because, you know, there's a large segment of the fan base for quite a while that was very vocally anti-bitter juries, and like the 20s into the start of the 30s, I would say, is kind of the height of that. Right. I think that a lot of the fan base kind of quieted down on that. Yeah, the Russell Hantz effect. And I think that people have quieted down on that and been more okay with bitter juries and like more understanding. But I think the like psychological reflex hasn't really caught up to that kind of change in culture. And so like a lot of people are just very afraid of that label. And yeah, or just will just even I don't even, I think that it's like perfectly possible that people make bitter jury votes and don't like realize it, like, you know, because it's kind of like under their you know, it's not like the thing that they're trying to do. They're not like going out of their way to be like, this is a bitter vote. It's just kind of a vote that's happened, and they've almost like gaslit themselves into thinking that it's not a bitter vote. and then they like project that onto the audience by then gaslighting the audience.
Right. And, you know, I'm not saying like I would go in and be a robot on Survivor. I might just vote for my friend if they're in the final. You know, I might be like Tiffany, being like, well, that's the person I like the most, so I'm going to campaign for them to win $1 million because that's my friend, you know? And I think that's valid. also. But yeah, I guess we'll see. I guess what Maria has to say. Hopefully, it's not a long running discourse for years, as the 43 one has been. But I guess we'll see. Like I said, I mean, like Dylan said, Malcolm voted for Denise. You can do that, but it just seems so silly because it's like Maria doesn't strike me as the type of person who would have like appreciated the tables being turned on that, you know. But yeah, it's just hard because she's the type of player who's like, if you're gonna get to the end and win, it's gonna be because people are like, I really respect how hard you played the game. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you need to give that same energy back,
That's why now it's just way more of a social game because like I personally I hate the bitter jury stuff. Like if I totally forgot about Carla and Jesse. I and how much I hated that when it happened. So like for me, I hate it, but like I also like I'm in the overall like I understand it's part of the game and it's part of you trying. It's part of the jury management and like what you need to do. Mm-hmm. But something about this particular situation, like you said, Brian, if the roles were reversed, Charlie votes for her.
I mean, I don't know if he would, but I think if he didn't, Maria would be upset.
I personally feel very confident that he would, and I obviously I don't know him personally, but based on what we saw in the game, I feel like he would have. And I think the look on his face of like the pure of betrayal, I think that we saw, I feel like it was obvious that he would have. Even when he voted her out, like, his comment of like saying how great, how like proud of how proud her kid should be of her. I think like I said, it feels like a one-sided relationship where Charlie was very clearly actually invested in their friendship, and she was not. She was there to win the game, which is fine. That's the game, but it's also you're setting yourself up the way when you do these things to face the backlash. Because I agree with you, Brian. In the end, she's not the villain. I guess I should say that I would want, but I think that she is the villain that like these modern seasons are set up to be. Because between social media backlash, I don't think we'll ever see somebody be blatantly like the bad guy. Because also like with the game, if they are like that off the bat, they're going to get voted out. It's just I just feel like people just don't keep those people around anymore. But I don't know. I mean, people use Q was not that. Q was not a blatant bad guy. Like you said, Q had the delusion where he thought he was still the hero of everything. But yeah. I don't know.
Don't think he was very good at Survivor. I don't know he's a villain. He's just inept at certain aspects of the game.
I'd argue he's bad at Survivor, but I'd argue he's so entertaining.
You won't get much of a counter argument from me.
But he won you our winner pick thing, so don't.
I love him. He's maybe my favorite character in like the last 20 years, not 20 years, but 20 seasons. But yeah, I don't think he's a particularly good Survivor player.
If you're picking a lock to return from this season, for me, it's Q.
For
50. Well, I mean, the issue is his girlfriend's pregnant right now, so
yeah, he's gonna have a really young child.
He's
like a year and a half.
He's got a year.
Yeah, he's got. I mean, good for him. Congratulations. Good for Kenzie too. I saw she's also, which is gonna sound so stupid and so like too deep in the Survivor community. But the second I saw she posted a maternity photo shoot, I was like, oh shit, she definitely won because she feels like comfortable financially to have a child. And I was like, maybe that's just me and that's just in my head. But then she did win, and I was like, I knew it. I fucking knew she was gonna win. But no, good for her. Very exciting for everybody there. But yeah, I mean, I would love to watch Q play again. I just would love to watch him interact with all kinds of different people. I think he'll be great. And speaking of, Q voted for Kenzie and has been very open. Like, he's like, I don't give a shit what she said before my question. She answered the question in the way that I wanted, and I voted for her because of it. And it's like, and he definitely has more leeway because everyone's like, oh, Q, you're like such a goofy character. But at least he's like owning, like, yeah, I don't really give a shit what else happened in the game. She answered my question in this way that made me want to vote for her.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. I guess we can talk about the final four.
Love this challenge. Love it.
I really like the challenge. The only thing I didn't like was it looked like when Charlie put up his ball like the third time or whatever, it like hopped down 2 pegs, and that's kind of what caused him to be off kilter for the rest of the challenge, I think. So maybe slightly tweak it so that's less likely to happen.
Just put a clear thing over
the
ball can't bounce.
Exactly.
Done.
And otherwise, this was a really, really cool challenge design. It reminded me of like a Big Brother challenge, actually.
It's like the superhero veto, which I love. I think that's a great challenge also.
Yep. It's the same kind of idea where you have to like, and I think BBK 12 also did a similar challenge on this most recent season, where you have to basically like reset a timer and be focused on that while also trying to solve a puzzle. And if the timer goes off, you either lose or you get penalized somehow. Yeah, this is like classic challenge design. I'm glad Survivor has done it now.
And I really love Big Brother. I guess that's most for Dylan. In it, they have to swing back and forth from one platforms with the puzzle, one's with the timer that you have to reset. And the puzzle is a very simple puzzle, but it's magnetized. If you don't do it, it all falls off. So you like start it again, which I thought, it's really fun. Survivor did a good job though with like that, just painfully slow, like roll. Like the slope was like this, like it was as gradual as you could possibly get, which
a single degree.
Yeah, single degree. Yeah, it was. I loved it. I thought this is great, and unique, right? I don't think they've done this challenge before.
No, it was nice to switch it up, especially because right hasn't the final challenge been the ball?
Yeah, it's been some motion most of the New Era seasons. Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to them for switching it up.
The only time I think we ever got like this type of thing was Nicaragua. It was like you throw it up and you have to like catch it on which was fun too. But now let's get the shot in the dark into the like we said, retrofit it, and I think we'll be good.
Yeah, I do agree. I think this is like a good way for them to take the Simotion concept and make it more like TV appealing, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And it is very important that the puzzle is like pretty straightforward and easy, because and good for Ben, he won, but also bad for Ben, he won. He had to make a decision here.
I loved the editing on this where you had his voiceover in the confessional like timed up with the moment you could see on his face the realization set in. It was like perfect editing.
Yeah, so good. Someone said that scene where he was like that, and then with the thing and then sad. It was like this is basically the end of The Graduate. So that was very good. Yeah.
So yeah, I think the elephant in the room now is Ben's decision here, and like Ben's kind of logic. Ben thinks that the biggest threat of the final four is Liz. I
think he wasn't getting a lot of sleep, Ben. All right.
Yeah.
I don't think he really thought that. I think that
either you just told Liz that.
I think Ben knew he wasn't winning that game, and I think Ben wanted to take the person he liked the most with him. I'm totally fine with that. Maybe it fed into Liz's ego a little bit for her to say the stuff at the end. I have no problems with Ben. I don't think there was ever a scenario where Ben wins this at all. I think, like I said, I think Ben took the person he liked the most with him, which is fine. I think the knock is more so on Charlie, not maybe wanting to push more to go to fire. But in that scenario, going to fire is so scary because especially if you think that you still have a chance to win, even if you don't go to fire, then why would you go to fire? Because literally anything could happen in fire at that point. So I think this is where the argument where you see that Charlie maybe took his foot off the gas a little bit, I think it starts becoming a little bit valid. But like I said, if I'm in that scenario and I'm Charlie, and I think that I can win at Final Tribal regardless, which I still would have thought if that's in this situation that he could get a realistic chance to win, I'm not putting myself in fire. I feel like if you ask to put yourself in fire, you one have to be incredibly confident that you're the best fire maker in that challenge, and two, you got to feel like that you need to make like one final statement to do it, which is why I personally hate I hate this is also where I start to hate Maria. Is Maria saying that she saw the fire in Kenzie's eyes? Kenzie did not want to do fire. It was literally Kenzie was one of two people that were chosen to do fire, and Kenzie ended up being better at fire.
Kenzie was on the verge of a mental breakdown for like 90% of the fire making challenge.
So like I we'll discuss that later, and what you talk about, Brian, of not just owning up to being bitter. But this is where I can see the argument that this is where Charlie started to take his foot off the gas and maybe should have pushed a little bit more. But for that exact scenario, I said where if I think I can win, why would I want to risk at this point to go into fire? Like I think Maria's the only person that, and I think that she's lying. I think she's the only person that based her vote off of the apparent fire win. Sure.
So yeah. I'm gonna say this for all future: if your decision on who should win comes down to fire after an entire game, you're a fucking idiot. Fire's literally stupid. I would not pay attention if I was on the jury. I don't give a shit. Like, you're penalizing Charlie for being in a socially good position. Like, if this firing wasn't a thing, Liz just gets voted off 3-1 probably, like, or maybe they try to get Kenzie out and she gets voted off 3-1. There's no way Charlie's going home in this Final Four based on how he played the game, which is the point of Survivor, right? At least I thought it was. I don't know. Yeah. I hate the firing challenge. It's so stupid. And I thought we were kind of getting out of this because there were a few people who either got chosen or just won immunity and didn't have to do the fire and won the game in the new era. But apparently we're back on this bullshit, and I hate it. It's so stupid. Jeff Probst, you're a fucking moron for putting this into the game. Like, right. That's all I have to say about it.
This is where Survivor is still going to continue to shoot itself in the foot. Where I don't know why they're so hell-bent on keeping the fire. Thank you for bringing this up, Ryan, because I almost forgot about like how I'm still incredibly annoyed by the fire. I think it's so much more interesting to have the vote in this scenario because, like you said, sure, if it's Ben and Charlie teaming up hypothetically, then probably neither one of them are going home, and I don't think that Liz and Kenzie are going to vote together at that point. I think it's a way more interesting both as a viewer and gameplay wise to see how this plays out in a vote. If you want to keep doing Final Three, that's fine, but between the fire and the way that Final Tribal is set up, I think that this is, in the end, probably what's going to hold Survivor back from ever feeling like old Survivor, is that leaving the fire making mechanic in there is so dumb. Like, it was a very cool, epic moment during Winners at War when you had my brain's gone. Tony and Sarah. Like, that was a great moment. And it was like kind of like a really great send off for me for kind of like that earlier era. Because I at the time, I'm still a big fan of both of them. Like, that was great. That worked out awesome. You are not getting that 99 times out of 100 where you're doing this. And so, yeah, I hate the fact that they still do it. And like you said, Brian, the fact that anybody would credit somebody with winning fire and like play it into their vote is dumb. And I've talked about the scenario too of like how badass it would be if you win that final immunity and you're like, you know what, I want one final like F you, like I'm gonna get out my biggest competitor in this game. That's where it works and where I think it's cool.
Yeah, we've seen it though. Like, we're not gonna top Chris. Well, yeah, I don't know if you've seen the season, but that happened on a season.
Like, I'm aware. Yes, yeah. And it's not only that, but like we said, how insane you have to be to do that now if you think you have a chance to win. it's something where, and there's another thing we'll talk about after that I still hate it. It's something where the show is forcing kind of like this path that it really doesn't need to, and it waters down the ending of the game. I agree. I hate it. And I wish they would just do away with it.
Yeah, and we've seen with Heidi now that it doesn't necessarily work. Like the people aren't going to just vote for you because you make a big flashy move at the Final Four and win fire. If you've played like a bad game for the first whatever it is now, like 24 days or whatever it is. I agree. I think the only thing here at the Final Four for Charlie, the calculus basically is he more likely to beat Kenzie in fire or more likely to beat Kenzie in a jury vote? And I think hindsight 2020, he's probably much more likely to have beaten her in fire. I think we could say the jury vote was very close. It could have been even like 48-52. Like he could have had like a 48% chance of winning this jury vote. But the way that Kenzie performed in fire, I think he beats her like 80-90% of the time.
Yeah. And like, are we going to get like, so we've seen fire save like the favorite person in Ben and HHH. We've seen a player.
Jeff's favorite, maybe.
Honestly, the reason why it's still a thing, I'm sure. We've seen Chris win the game because he put himself in fire after winning immunity. Great. And we've seen a 3-season-long story arc end because of fire. Like, what more are we going to get out of this twist? Like, the reason fire making was interesting before it became the end game was because someone was making a social move to convince someone else to give them a shot to make it. And then there was like the calculus of like, oh, well, if I give them the shot and they lose, I'm definitely getting their jury vote, versus like, oh, if they win, they'll probably win because they could have this argument of, I socially convinced somebody to let me have a chance to stay in the game. That to me was the only interesting part. I don't care about watching people make fire to burn a little string, you know?
Hard agree.
So whatever, you know, Jeff Probst, you'll probably still do it because you clearly don't really understand why Survivor's successful in the first place. But
I also think it'd be way more interesting if they left it as a mechanic in the game, where if you have two players potentially that are going to draw rocks, where they can then decide to make fire if they think they'll have a better chance. Like something like that, I think is way more interesting than this. Like you said, there's a way where fire can be interesting, and it's not every single season. It's not something. It's maybe it shouldn't be every like 5 seasons. It's something that if it randomly comes up and it's used the right way, it works. But it's just like there are so many different ways where it just doesn't work, and it waters everything down that it just needs to be done with.
Yeah.
Well, it did naturally happen about every 5 seasons before, with 2-2 ties.
and like all of those were interesting and good. You know, even the ones where like the players in them, neither of them won the season, you know, still had like Rodney versus Mama C, and like that was entertaining because Rodney was like so fucking pissed that he lost. I don't know. It's just I don't know how you could implement it again, because I don't know when a 50-50 shot would ever be better than the percentage of pulling a rock out of a bag. Like I think other than Final Four, it's the rock thing is always a lower chance of being the one getting hit. But we don't need it at all. But I guess it doesn't matter. It's here to stay. I've long since resigned myself to Final Threes. I guess I'll have to just accept the Final Four fire making challenge at some point.
So I guess like to kind of go back to the beginning of this though, because we started that rant about the fire. Do you think it would have made a difference at all for Ben to take Liz and to put Charlie and Kenzie together? Do you think?
Yeah, either one of them win because they're.
Do you think it makes a difference for Ben though? Like, do you think Ben gets any votes?
Well, I mean, Ben definitely, I think, wanted Charlie to win the season over Kenzie, from what we've heard. So I think like it would have been a more favorable outcome in that sense, that in terms of like Ben would have gotten a winner that he slightly liked more. But I mean, I don't think it changes anything for Ben. I still
No, I don't. Yeah, not for Ben.
I think Charlie probably wins unanimously.
Yeah.
Maybe Maria throws fucking Ben or Liz a vote if she's still that better, but
Right.
I don't think it's even particularly close at all. No, if Ben takes Liz and puts Charlie and Kenzie in a fire, it's like we're having a conversation about if Charlie's the best winner of the new era, probably.
Right.
Oh, you got me upset. Now I'm upset. Move on.
Sorry. Yeah. Hey, I didn't think I was gonna come in so hot, but the fire was in my eyes, I guess.
And once again, to keep reiterating, I am fine with Kenzie winning. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, no, she's great.
But now we keep going down that path, like what Ben just said. Maybe he's the best winner of the new era. He probably is.
It would have been a lot more interesting if Kenzie made the final three by, socially maneuvering herself into it, in my opinion.
So I guess we can talk about this. Let's talk about the jury vote a little bit more, because for me, I had like a vision in my head of like kind of where people were leaning. And other than Tiffany, I think I was completely off on every single juror on who they were leaning. I had just like no read at all, and it felt like a lot of the jurors like we're very much hyper focusing on Maria because that's like the very obvious like flashing light that the show even is trying to make us look at. But for me, I legitimately feel like most of these jurors like kind of just made up a decision of how they felt on the fly in the moment they were in the voting booth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily mind that they were open-minded about, who won. And I think, like, it's tough, especially the first three jurors hardly played with any of the final three. I think Soda, like, talked about it. She was like, I was just getting secondhand reports the whole time. And, like, the final tribal council really was an opportunity for her to hear it from them and then be like, is that true? Do I believe that? Do I want to like reward this, performance? But yeah, I was surprised, I guess. Well, I guess I was really only surprised with Q and Maria. Everyone else, I was kind of like, either they were out of the game for so long, I really didn't have a strong inclination. Like if you had asked me before the episode yesterday who Soda, Tevin, and Hunter were voting for, I would have been like, I don't know. Hunter probably votes for Charlie because he won challenges, but
that's fine. Hunter was one of the ones where during the final tribal council speeches, it felt like he was stumping more for Kenzie and like was more positive on her game. And so he went to the voting booth and they showed his vote and it was Charlie. I was surprised.
So this is where I have like my other. I think this is a bigger issue for the game right now than the fire making is they showed them on the beach basically preparing like speeches and responses prior to it, which doesn't make any sense because they don't do the like opening arguments for these players to allow to kind of like defend themselves. And then a lot of people are really upset with Tiffany. I'm fine with Tiffany kind of like commandeering Final Tribal to champion for her friend, which is fine. I think that the way it's set up right now, it completely enables that. But it seemed like there was a lot of Charlie being cut off. I don't think Charlie was railroaded in Final Tribal, but I don't think he was given. And this is not to say that I think this is where I also think Charlie maybe potentially could have done a better job pitching his case or like managing some jurors. I think he still clearly did a good enough job because he lost by one vote. But there was a lot of times too where like Tiffany, I think, really kind of took over there. Like the introduction statement about like the no Rock and no Taylor Swift stuff. Like Kenzie didn't really do anything like that for it to be able to be called out, which I get that. And a lot of people are upset about that. But I do think that the way that Final Tribal is set up now basically enables somebody to kind of completely take over and start championing for the person that they want to win. And we saw it too, like in previous seasons where like we saw Spencer basically using his allotted time to pitch for Tony, saying like, Tony clearly won this game. he shouldn't be here and he is, like, you're crazy not to vote for Tony. Like, that stuff's fine, but I don't know. And I think that that's also why there's another big issue with Charlie Maria too, is that Maria, you would hope would be championing for her, because I genuinely feel like Charlie would have been in the opposite direction, saying like, hey, Maria was the one that was driving all these moves here. Like, if you're going to respect the game, you need to respect Maria. Where, like, the opposite, where I feel like Tiffany here was like, hey, remember, we all like Kenzie a lot, and I think Kenzie's going to do a lot of good stuff with the money. Let's just vote for Kenzie. And in the meantime, like, we're getting like timed responses for Charlie and Ben, and like we're constantly being cut off. Like, and I'm not upset with the people that are on Tribal doing this, because that, like, they're being enabled to do this. Just the same thing we talked about with Liz interfering with Maria and helping out Kenzie. Like, this is where Jeff needs to be a host and needs to do some sort of like managing, and they need to go back to allowing the people that are there to like make their pitch first before they kind of go in through the ringer, and also like some sort of management for the tribal council. Like, there's has to be. And I'm not upset with Tiffany, and I think that I wish Charlie had somebody like Tiffany in his corner, because I think it would have helped him out a lot. And it's a testament to Kenzie and how well she played and made friendships along the way, especially with Tiffany. But it sucks to see, because I don't think Charlie had a fair opportunity to pitch his game, but I think that he could have done better with the time he had. But at the same time, like I said, I felt like that he was constantly being cut off and like corrected with things, when previously that was not like allowed. Like, I feel like there have been instances before where Jeff has told someone to like, hold on, chill out, let them talk. And that's just like not there anymore. And I think it affects the game in the end. It's changing the way things are playing out.
Yeah, well, I think the jury interrupted all of them. Like, Q at the start was interrupting Kenzie like crazy in like her first question answer. To me, it felt like I was watching Pardon the Interruption as opposed to like the Survivor Final Tribal. Like, it was like
around the horn.
Around the horn, yeah.
Yeah, I need Jeff to give points as people are talking.
So it was very odd. Like, I didn't mind the 30-second thing that much. It felt very like it just kind of felt very artificial as opposed to like personal. I felt like they were doing this like business meeting to like do like an evaluation of their game, but then it also felt like none of them were actually caring about what any of them said about their game. So it's a very weird dichotomy there. So I don't know.
He asked at the end. He asked, like, did people change their vote during the way people talked? And the people that raised their hand said they changed their vote for Charlie. And I don't know. It's crazy to me, because, and it could just be edits too. Like, I don't. People were responses and stuff are clearly edited out during this, and people asking questions are edited out. So maybe a lot of it was edited out. And like I said, there's still a very clear argument there that I think Charlie could have did things differently. But it just, if we're going off of what you're showing us, it just doesn't seem like that there was necessarily like the fairest of, like, it happens a lot now, where it seems like the jurors are enabled way more to make it about themselves now than it is about the people that are fighting to win the game. Like, it's been more and more prevalent each season recently, where it's less that you're allowing these players to pitch their case and you're grilling them. It's more so just like, I'm getting my 5 minutes or whatever to kind of like make my last mark in this game. And I agree. Like, the point you made, Ben, of them timing them for 30 seconds. Were they even listening to them at that point, or were they just watching the clock? Because it seemed like that they were just watching the clock.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally fine with what Tiffany did because of the format. Like, yeah, if you think someone should win, because I've never played Real Survivor, but I've played other Survivors where, like, based on Final Tribal Council, how some people did. I wish I could have spoken on their behalf, where it's like, oh, they're not necessarily pitching themselves that well, but I see what they're saying, and I feel like I could articulate their case pretty well, but because of how the format was locked in, you can't just like start talking. So I don't mind that. But yeah, I think the 30-second thing was weird because it's like, guys, this is final. This is it. This is Final Tribal Council. Let's figure it all out. Let's get everything out there. and make like an informed decision. Not you can have the best sound bite.
Yeah, I can understand both sides. I do agree that there's like a tendency for a lot of finalists to vamp a lot and really use questions to like as a springboard to talk about things that the jurors weren't really asking about and like go on these tangents to try to like utilize the jurors' time, quote unquote, to advocate for themselves in a way that the juror didn't really set up. So like I can understand wanting to like put a kibosh on that and try to focus people to the like exact things that the jurors are looking for. But I don't know if 30 seconds answers is the way to do that. I think the way to do that is if somebody goes on crazy tangents and utilizes their time inefficiently, don't vote for them.
Yeah. And I also feel like it does like kind of hinder maybe players who are less like willing to like be more, as outspoken, where like, yeah, it allows the jury members to very much drive a narrative. And if you have a narrative that they want to push, you can pretty much unlimitedly push that narrative and maybe it'll stick with some people,
Mm-hmm.
Also, if that whole 30-second thing was like an artificial plant, which it really very much could have been of producers saying like, hey, there's going to be one part of this where we want you to time each person 30 seconds. If we're worried about time, you can say, I almost forgot to talk about it. I still hate so much when we hear from the jurors before the tribal where they have their confessionals where they're back on the beach and like their street clothes again. Like, I hate that so much. I don't want to hear from the jurors until that final tribal. Like the fact of them like walking around the beach and being interviewed again on here of saying like, this is what we want to hear from all these people. Like I hate it so much because like we already know what you want to hear from these people. We already know that anybody that wants to win the game needs to pitch their game. And so the fact that we have this whole thing about what they want to hear from these people before, and then we have this whole like you're timing them, you're cutting them off, and all this stuff. It's just so dumb. And if you are worried about saving time, cut that like 3.5 minutes that we spend seeing all these people explain what they want to see. Because I think that feels like so cheap, like to the overall, like they're gone. Basically, in terms of like if they're in the jury, they're dead unless they're at the tribal. Like they're gone. They're not a part of this. I don't want to see them again. They're gone. That's the whole point. And I think it makes that final tribal so much better where you're hearing from players for the first time in like 7-8 weeks. You know what I mean? It's not like this. That's not anything new. They've done it the past couple seasons. This whole charade of like having these people come out and like they're in their nice clothes again. Like, hey, look at they're clean. Remember they've been at Ponderosa. I hate it. And now that you put it in my mind that whole timing thing could have been like artificially done and implanted by producers, I hate it even more now. And I go back to that. Like, cut those 3 minutes and give us more of people being able to articulate their game and tribal.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I understand where Tiffany. I understand why they did it. I just think it's counterproductive to what the ends that it seemed like they were trying to reach. But it was very productive towards, like Brian said, pushing a specific or like creating a specific set narrative. Yeah, I thought all of them actually did pretty well with their 30 seconds as well.
Yeah,
I wanted to hear more. I didn't want because it seemed like they had more to say.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations, Kenzie. She obviously killed it at Final Tribal Council. She got $1 million. Pretty, that's pretty great. I will say, I don't know if this is gonna make me sound bad, but like I do not give a shit what they're gonna do with the money.
Thank you.
They could like be like, I'm gonna go to the nearest casino from the airport and put it all on black and let it ride, baby. And I'd be like, fuck yeah, that's your money. You do what you want to do with it. Like I don't care.
I sent it in our text stream last night. I hate that question being asked, and I understand it, especially like you said, $1 million was so much money back in the day when this game first started, and it's still like if I got $1 million now after taxes, it's going to help me out and it's good, but it's not necessarily completely life changing at this point. That said, give me $1 million. I would love it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you wouldn't turn it down.
But I hate the question of what you'll use to do with it. I hate that, and I hate going into like a sob story, and it shouldn't matter, and it's the jury's right to ask it. I just hate that question. Shouldn't matter what, like you said, it really, I don't care. It shouldn't matter in the end of the game what you're doing with that money. Like if you want to go buy a bunch of crack at the end, great. That's gonna make a great like YouTube like 50-minute clip to explain what happened to this person.
Big Brother 9.
And
yeah, Big Brother 9, the guy tried to use his winnings to basically start like a drug empire.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
I think they should bring him back for an All-Star season just to see him win again. Then what happens?
But this is where we get into Maria's bullshit of her saying she saw the fire in Kenzie's eyes when she did the fire, and she wants her to go like start her family. Like this is where the whole narrative begins for Maria, of her just being bitter, and like you said, Brian, not owning up to being bitter, of all that. Of basically like she's pointing out two things that really shouldn't have like altered the end vote. And you're saying that because you saw her want to win the game when she was at building fire, and that she wants her to like start a family and be happy. Like that's just stupid. I hate that. I hate that question at the end. What you're going to do with the money? I hate it.
Yeah, because it's not my money. I don't care. It's CBS's money. You know.
Is it like to make the jurors feel better? Of right, like, like pat us on the back, like we're giving the money to someone who's going to use it the best. Like if that's the point, and pick the three people with the shittiest backgrounds and the worst sob stories to be in the final tribal, so we can just like let's cut out the past 29 days or whatever it is that we've just been. Yeah, like and it's somebody brought up
welfare.
Somebody brought up like, oh, Charlie doesn't need that money. Like I don't know Charlie's background, and maybe he doesn't need the money, but and once again, the money is still like semi life changing. Like, give me $1 million, it will help me out a lot. Like the winnings was part of like it was the nice trophy for actually literally winning the game. Like you're there to win the game, they win the $1 million, but it's not about winning just $1 million. You're trying to win Survivor, and we hear that from so many different people that were like they want to win, they want to be the sole survivor. And like if that's the final question we're asking of what you'll do with $1 million, and that's altering your pick, that's just dumb. But I don't think that changed. I don't think that was why Maria voted for Kenzie. I just, like you said, Brian, I hate that she's not owning up to it, and those are the excuses that she gave for why she voted against Charlie.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I know personally, like I'm not like actively applying for these shows, but the reason that I would go on to Survivor or Big Brother would be for the title. It would not be
right.
Like the money. Obviously, I'm not saying no to the money. Like, you know, the money's nice, but like for me, first and foremost, I would be going on these shows to win the title, and that's like what would be driving me.
These people are all going to be getting residual money too. Everybody that we saw in this episode is still going to be paid out for this episode for however many years. Maybe not like a lot, you know, they're not getting millions of dollars, but still.
I don't know if reality TV people get residuals.
They get stipends though for each round or episode they're in.
Yeah, I forget. It was like,
but I don't think they get money.
They don't get residuals now.
Yeah.
There was a whole, I forget which player it was. There was a whole TikTok that I saw of somebody explaining in Survivor, the longer they were in the game, the more episodes they premiere, the more money they'll still get.
Well, jury is the same. Jury, first juror to fourth place is all the same, or for the most part. I think it's slightly gradated, but it's like very marginal.
Mm-hmm.
What's really brutal is Big Brother. What was it, like 12th place and third place get the same amount of money?
Yeah,
so
if you're in the jury, you're in every episode. So
yeah.
What does second place get?
100,000.
It's not like Kenzie would have been out in the cold.
And third gets 750. Or 750. 75.
85.
Third gets more. 85. Yeah, that sounds right.
Good for Ben. And also props to Ben realizing he's going to lose and like pitching his favorite charity, like the charity that's important. And once again, I really like Ben a lot. I'm fine not seeing him on Survivor again, but like Ben, the dude that we saw kind of like commit to being himself throughout that game. He's somebody I would love to to hang out with. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I can run that for sure. Yeah, he's a good dude.
Good for him. Kind of like using his time. Kind of reminds me of it's not the exact same thing, but Troy Zan kind of basically saying like, hey, you're not voting for me, but I had a hell of a time here. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this. It's sort of like that where I think he knew he wasn't going to be there, but he still used that time to pitch things that were important to him. I think that's cool.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think, I think that Ben, here's a very interesting character, under edited, but seems like he was a cool guy.
I really hope he gets considered. I hope he gets those night terrors figured out. So,
hopefully those don't follow him into regular life. That
seems like a literal nightmare to go through that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was also interviewed in Rolling Stone, so that's exciting.
So I haven't listened to it, but the just recent podcast, I believe, has him, Kenzie, and Charlie broken up into 3 different segments. I believe. I haven't listened to it, but that's my understanding of what the episode is.
I haven't listened to it either, but all I saw was that Jeff on the podcast asked Ben who we would have voted for if it was a tie, and he said Charlie. So, which has to sting. That means Charlie was 1 vote away.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said at the top of the show, this was one of the closest end games probably in the history of the show. Like definitely top 5 in my opinion, closest to jury votes.
Yeah,
easily could have gone either way.
I thought for sure we were getting a tie. I think them setting up right before Soda saying like, who knows, it could be a tie. I thought for sure we were getting a tie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of discourse in the lead up in the week leading up of people predicting that it was going to be a 4-4 tie between.
And when there's a lot of discourse like that, it makes me be like, is this a prediction or are you
exactly
spoilers? Because
I felt the same way.
I've seen some really impressive predictions. I'll put it that way.
How did they my time? Because I saw after the fact that it was spoiled last year that D won a lot online. How do these get out? Is somebody working on the show is leaking these? It's got to be, right?
Yeah, or like people like they'll like work with like people locally as well, and it slips out here and there. Like there's been obviously instances of also players who leak anonymously, and then it's it becomes less anonymous. Russell Hantz famously leaked the boot list for both of his first few seasons. I believe Brenda Lowe may or may not have leaked the boot list of Nicaragua.
I was talking about somebody about this. Did Venus spoil who won? I don't follow her on Twitter, so I don't actually see the things she cheated.
No, she just was very open about
things. A lot of people joked about Venus breaking NDA, but I don't think she really said anything that was very explicit
she's more just I fucking hate these people.
Yeah.
People are you probably shouldn't say that.
There's a lot of vibe spoilers where you could kind of read into it if you really wanted to, but nothing concrete.
Like I said, I feel as somebody that was pretty much not necessarily pro Venus, but somebody that liked Venus. She seems like she was a little vindicated because the only things I saw that she said were the controversial things that were posted on Reddit and stuff. Of her basically, like you said, I think that she was going at Maria a lot a week or two ago, things like that. It seems like she was a little vindicated. She basically said that everybody treated her like shit at Ponderosa, and I forget the exact verbiage, but it seemed like she was vindicated a little bit with the way things turned out in the final episode.
Yeah, I saw somebody put Venus in a really. What I thought was pretty accurate. It was Venus has a really good read on everyone except herself.
Yes. Yep. That's perfect.
Yeah.
No, I think like you said, about she never spoiled anything, but I think it would be a good rule of thumb for these players if they want to ever play again to just like you don't have to tweet. You don't have to. You can not tweet, and
You have
it's
to get
fine.
into beef with the Empire State Building.
You don't have to do that. It's funny when that happens, but I'll say this: she didn't tweet as aggressively as say Tony did during his first season. Tony was wilding out on Twitter. He was picking fights with people. He was, it was a lot, and that didn't stop him from getting invited back. So
That was back in like the Wild West days of like Twitter too, though. That was
it really
those
was.
are like the early,
It caused a big like shutdown. Like for a few seasons after that, like they were really strict about what players could post on social media during their seasons.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think the San Juan del Sur cast was even allowed to tweet about Survivor.
That was the season after, yeah.
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 I remember I remember Jeremy tweeting about like can't wait to watch I don't know, like History of Sarah or some shit, like some ABC show that was on at the same time as Survivor. Yeah, I don't know. Tony really was entirely out of pocket, and probably there were a lot of meetings that were had because of him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Venus had the same effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you gonna say, Dylan?
We can ask off recording, and we're gonna go on another tangent. But it's I am.
Let's wrap it up. We're almost an hour and a half in.
I am very curious of the castings we'll get both for 50 and for Australian Survivor with the US player.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be exciting to talk about, but maybe that can be the next thing. We can do. We'll be able to do
we'll do an off season, or we'll do something. But it's come to an end. I thought it was a really wonderful season, really good winner. Just delivered, reinvigorated me very much with Survivor. Like,
hopefully
it's very funny because 44. There's a certain point where I was like, do I even like Survivor anymore? Or am I just watching it because it's like a part of who I am so much? But no, I love Survivor. Survivor's fucking awesome.
I agree. This is the most fun I had recording this season. I think that was a testament to the show. I think the show just provided us a lot to talk about. I had that same feeling, Brian. I was basically questioning if I had like trapped myself into sticking with this show because we do a podcast. Right, and I started to have those worries the first like 3 episodes of the season. Because if you remember, I was like halfway out at the beginning of the season with this show. But it turned it around. I'm very hopeful for next season too. The cast next season seemed fun, so I'm really looking forward to the fall coming. But I had a great time this season. Great season. It's definitely up there for me. It's definitely like top like 50% of seasons for me viewing wise. Yeah, it was great. I hope to see a few of these players back. I think we almost definitely will.
Yeah.
Hope if we get a second chance season, like the Charlie Maria dynamic is like would be perfect for it. To kind of bring that in as a narrative. So, but yeah, if we're grading it, I think recently I haven't gone above like a C+ or a B- for seasons. I'd probably give this like a B+, A-.
Yeah, B+ is where I would put it as well.
Yeah, day one, I was in on this season, and I stayed in on it the whole time. I actually was looking back at our conversation of when we were doing like the winner picks in our chat, and being like, from the previews, calling the shot of like this is going to be Gabon 2, and then it was very, very gratifying to see the wider Survivor community come to that same conclusion over the course of the season. Just made me be like, okay, I still have my finger on the pulse somewhat. I'm a little washed. I'm old now, but I'm with it a little bit with Survivor anyways.
Yeah. I will definitely make some really wild winner picks, and just kind of throw some shit at the wall there, and not really try hard very much, but maybe I'll try hard for 47. I don't know. But it's gonna be tricky because there's like multiple people on the season that are like known entities within the wider Survivor fan base. So we'll see.
A really, probably the highest, amount of podcasters going into a season. We obviously we get a lot of podcasters coming out of seasons, but there are a lot of people on this season who are part of successful podcasts. So that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. We have like 1.5 RHAP podcasters, and obviously Pod John from Pod Save America, among others.
That was crazy to me. I was like, oh, okay.
I love it. Yep. We'll get to it in the fall, but we have like multiple mutual friends with another member of the cast. We'll be able to get like an expert guest on who is like really close to one of the players, or two. Yeah. We probably could get like 5, honestly.
Yeah, right.
We do like a panel, the teeny panel.
The teeny panel.
Yeah.
No pressure to her in Fiji right now. But yeah, I hope she's still in the game right now and she's having a good time. I guess my first impression was the cast looks interesting. I hate that we did the same color scheme again of red, blue, and yellow. We can move on. We can do other colors. That'd be cool, actually.
I do like.
And I was tricked because one of the boats was a really nice teal color. And I was like, oh shit, is that going to be the blue this season? And it was not. It was the boat with the red tribe on it. So that's disappointing.
I do like the thematics of like the forging and like the metalwork or the stonework or whatever. Like that seems like there's like potentially interesting things they could mess around with like the theme. So
yeah,
given that we don't really have like hard and fast themes anymore, or like the location is the same every time, and so they kind of have to do these abstract concepts as themes. Like that's one that I could see it be interesting.
Yeah, but you think you need at least mix up the buff colors? Oh man, they're all blending together.
We've talked about the new era being very samey, so we don't have to rehash that. Anything else? Anything else we want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, get rid of the after show being immediately after. That's
yes,
all.
please stop. Please stop.
It's really, really uncomfortable to watch the losing finalists after.
Bring back the live reunion.
Nobody in the West pretends. Everyone in the West pretends COVID's not a thing anymore, right?
Right? Yeah, right. Let's just bring it back. Jeff wants to bring it back. He misses the interjecting in between,
running out to the children in the audience and putting the microphone in their face and being like, "Which one of these is your favorite?" And then just yell out the obvious favorite that the show has been shoving down everyone's throats.
Yeah. I can tell that Jeff misses it in his heart, just from how they opened the episode this season with like basically how it would be, on a live show. But maybe one day. I don't know. CBS is kind of cheap.
Hopefully, at least for 50. I really hope at least for 50.
If it's going to be a season, they're going to start doing it's going to be 50. If there's going to be a season where they start but I don't think they'll go back to 39 days. If there's going to be a season where they start doing dramatic changes, though, it's going to be 50 where they start. And I think a lot of that will be important to getting older returning players back, like anything pre-Winners at War. I feel like they have to do some sort of shuffling to get the game sort of back to what it was before. So yeah, if there's going to be a season they're going to do that, it will be 50, right? Because 50 will be their spring season too, right? So that's like if it's going to happen, it's going to be 50.
Yeah. Has there ever been? Oh, I guess Cambodia, right? That's the only odd number All-Star season. So it's every other time.
Yeah, but it technically filmed second.
Yeah, right. They filmed it. The 32nd filmed season, but the 31st aired season. And that was just such a special circumstance that you couldn't. That would have been tough to be like, yeah, you voted for him. See ya in the spring. Watch Go Wrong and think about Second Chance.
Because that was Second Chance, right?
Yeah,
right.
well,
So they did the live vote in the spring, then they immediately took them off to go to the IC.
The reason they did it that way is because of the filming schedule. Because like they couldn't get the season 30 voting. Like Mike and Carolyn, basically, they couldn't get people voting for them. Or was there some? Yeah, there's somebody else, right? I guess the other is people in Worlds Park.
It was Max Dawson was also on the ballot. Rodney wasn't on the ballot.
No, Rodney wasn't.
Was.
It was Shireen, and Joe.
And Joe, yeah, of course, Joe.
So they couldn't like get those people onto the ballot without the season like mostly ending. But 30, what would have been 31, but ended up being 32, which is kind of wrong. Was already filming too early for them to like make it work, so they ended up having to swap the order.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because like Jeff like did like the announcement video, obviously when they were filming Karong, like from the beach, about how there's going to be the fan vote. Also, like that had to be a very interesting time in Jeff's life where he would like be filming a season, fly back to Los Angeles, do the show, the after show, and then fly back to continue hosting the season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that must have been very strange. But you know, he's a pro, so he made it work.
It's back when his heart was like really in it. That's when
I'll say he's a great host, really great host. Horrible producer,
lazy. Yeah. He's gotten lazy, but I will say he's earned a little bit of benefit of the doubt, at least for me, in terms of like they're back to doing some things right. They're not overly forcing things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
a lot fewer dumb twists this season for sure.
Some of the ship has been started to right its course again. So let's see if they fix the other things we like talked about.
Yeah. Well, I think this is great. I think we covered it, you know, pretty much as thoroughly as we could, right? Like an hour and a half. Longest episode this season. Second season in a row that we covered all the episodes. So I think that shows you how good this, you know, little stretch has been. 45 and 46, and hopefully 47 will continue that.
Yep, that's all I got.
Me too. Dylan, do you want to, you know, share where people can find you and all that? DJ
Clubberlang X, although probably without Twitter, without Survivor. I'm probably on Twitter a lot less without Survivor and football. So I guess
see you in the fall. For both.
I haven't done any of my TikTok stuff. I don't know. I'm a creative mess. So eventually we'll find something. But I'm hoping by the fall I'll have something to properly promote. But no, that's it for me.
Yep. You can find me here.
Yeah, there
I've been sharing. Probably won't tweet until the Girl 26 starts.
Yeah, as I was to say, you'll see us again on this channel. Maybe for House of the Dragon. I got to figure that out for sure. But certainly for Big Brother. I'm very excited. We got a commercial for it last night. Julie was back on my screen. Made me very happy. So yeah, watch there. Main channel, we can get everything. And our sports channel, we can sports. Kind of on hiatus. People are just really busy, so there hasn't been any content in like a few months in terms of being consistent, so we'll see about that. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you in the next one.